pray for us.
Okay, thank you, June. Let us close our eyes and pray. Loving Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessings and help us as we gather together. We pray for your guidance in matters at hand and ask you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with spirit and enthusiasm. Give us desire to find our ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excel. We will challenge each other to reach our higher and further to be the best we can be. In Jesus' name we do pray and believe. Amen.
We can't hear you.
So this is a virtual meeting. Thank you so much, Jackson. It's now over a year since the world moved into virtual meetings, and we just like to remind us some of the protocols that will guide us in this session. And I would like to invite Brenda Carrier to take us through the rules that will guide us.
Thank you, June. So allow me to start the session. So I'd like to request you all to mute yourself when not speaking. All speakers are encouraged to keep time when called upon to speak or present. Please ensure your technology works correctly and that you have a stable internet connectivity. Kindly ensure that you're dressed decently for this webinar. I request you all to switch off your camera for this event unless you're requested. And look into the book view. All participants should pay attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the chat section. Thank you, June.
Much appreciated, Brenda. Once again, I wish to welcome us to this session, and to set context on our discussion today is our ICT and Smart City Manager, Mr. Lucas Omolo. Lucas Omolo, karibu sana for the welcome remarks.
Thank you so very much, June, and the team. We don't take this for granted that we managed to join this session. Today marks a very important stage for the Konza Cloud that is offering a number of services to enterprises and government. The cloud is supporting our country drive the innovation ecosystem. And of course, the session that we intend to have today is meant to help us learn, our partners, our stakeholders who join this call, on what exactly exists between CAPEX and OPEX. And as we intend to grow into a competitive country going forward, how do we then position our IT in various enterprises, in various institutions where we work? We know research like Gartner have given clear statistics that close to 83% from the year 2019 of enterprises are now going to cloud. So then what does that mean as a country? How prepared are we to ensure that we are not left behind? So thank you once again, everyone who has joined the call today. We hope you'll have a very informative discussion, and feel free to share, of course, your comments on the chat. Thank you, June.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas Omolo, HSC. He is the manager in charge of the Konza ICT project. I wish to invite Engineer John Tanui, the CEO Konza Technopolis Development Authority, to just give us a brief update on where we are in this project, and even as we request him to invite the chief guest, who is our PS, Mr. Jerome Uching, to give us his introductory remarks as we get our speakers to engage us in this very important discussion. Karibu sana, CEO.
Thank you very much, June, and also to Lucas for the background you've given. our PS of ICT and Innovation, Mr. Chiromo Chieng, our very able panelist for today's discussion in this webinar, and all the participants, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure for us as Concert Technopolis Development Authority, with partnership with our Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, to have another webinar, this time about ICT and looking at aspects of OPEX and CAPEX. So we are very happy panelists who will go deep into this discussion. So I'll just go straight to a brief on where we are at Concert Technopolis, just to bring you to speed on the progress of Concert Technopolis. And the latest information we have is Concert Technopolis this Monday launched its second strategic plan, having been guided by a previous strategic plan which ran from 2016 to 2020. So we are quite excited to start a new journey with a new strategic plan in which we are focusing with a vision to be a leading global Technopolis and an innovation hub with a clear mission to develop a thriving, sustainable smart city and a vibrant innovation ecosystem with the aim of contributing towards the Kenya's knowledge economy. In this strategic plan are three. Of course, we still focus on the three key areas, that's ICT, ITS, that's IT-enabled services. We also focusing on the life sciences and also engineering. ICT team. Okay, so our key pillars in the new strategic plan are three. Our previous were two pillars, but with the growth of Concert Technopolis, our first strategic focus area is called business development, and this we aim to attract and retain investors. The second one is the knowledge economy and innovation, and this is our long-term dream, and where we aim to be a global hub of innovation. And now coming up as a smart city with ICT infrastructure, and even to today's topic is where we aim to deliver effective, efficient smart city services to the residents of Concert Technopolis, and also to support the nation as a digital platform for the country. In addition to the three key pillars, we have also three key enablers that will enable the Technopolis be able to achieve its dream. The three enablers, the first one is about our physical infrastructure. This is about the infrastructure that we have at the Technopolis. We are talking about the planning aspect of the city, and also the aspect to do with the environment. The second enabler is about the governance of the city with the onboarding of several investors and the residents of the city, and our engagement with the stakeholders. It's quite important that the governance is quite supportive of this initiative. The other is the institution to transform ourselves and efficient and effective, and also aim at achieving sustainability. So these are the three key enablers, and we have one foundational focus area, which we're looking at establishing a strong culture, organizational culture, and through this we have adopted three core values, which will really shape who we are as an authority, and will be reflected on how we engage our stakeholders, our staff, and amongst the various parties we will be working with. One is nurture. So we aim to nurture our people, our staff, to be able really to bring the best out of them, and to be able to ensure that the Technopolis we are working on or developing achieves its potential in its totality. The second core value is innovation, and we are looking at continuous improvement, looking at being transformative in our working, and looking and finding new ways that deliver in a ways that we deliver our products or services to all our stakeholders. The third is collaboration. This is quite important, especially a project of this magnitude and the number of stakeholders, and this project being critical in the aspect of national transformation. So collaboration is going to be a key thing. The third one is excellence. We aim to ensure that we continuously deliver better results for our people, for ourselves, for our country, and also we conduct our business with integrity, transparency, and being accountable, and also being ethical. So these are the four core values that we at Concert Technopolis are setting for ourselves to shape ourselves and how we interact and build the Technopolis. Next slide, please.
Next slide. Next.
Some of our achievement as Concert Technopolis, we initially were in the conceptualization stage. We moved to laying foundation. Our first strategic plan was about laying the foundations with the two key pillars, infrastructure and the knowledge economy. And now we have a fully designed Technopolis. And what you can see there, the first picture is a design of the KAIS, the Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, and the contractor is already at the site. Concert Complex, that's our office, and we were privileged recently that His Excellency the President came to launch this building, and this is where we are operating from. The other picture is the horizontal infrastructure. This is one of the massive infrastructure, turning a greenfield into a city with several utility facilities that are being developed, which I'll mention later others. The important one also is the National Data Center, which is now the digital platform to help transform the business of the Technopolis, being a platform for the country and also, of course, our government. We have other projects which are ongoing, part of the horizontal infrastructure, like the wastewater reclamation facility, water treatment facility, and many others. So today's topic is very relevant to us, coming from the recent launch of Bunivu Center. This is the National Data Center, which was one of the two projects launched by His Excellency the President. We have a ready platform, and we're looking at how can this platform be part of the national infrastructure. We know our country has laid very solid infrastructure, be it national fiber network. We have a lot of infrastructure on power. We have several other infrastructure laid by even private sector and even some multinationals. And this is quite an important discussion today for enterprises and businesses. Should you reinvest or invest in similar infrastructure, or should you look at an OPEX and leveraging on existing infrastructure? So today's topic is to look at how we can move from CAPEX to OPEX and making the big IT switch. Because one of the key advantages is cost implications, of course, and also the timelines it takes you to ensure you have your services and to be able to size and mitigate risk for various enterprises who would have to go through a wide range of processes before realizing. So there are many talked of advantages, whether CAPEX or OPEX, the kind of initial financial outlay if you have to procure IT solutions as a CAPEX. Of course, it takes time, and the amount of investment outlay is high. But also the aspect of the time it takes to lay, but also OPEX, taking it as an operational cost, it is you pay as you use, so it's quite an easy entry for enterprises. And so we at Concert Technopolis has put up a data center, and we are working with several partners. We are also open to engage other technology service providers so that we provide services at Conza Technopolis to our users as a package, as a bundle. And also it's important that also as we engage the various users, we are also able to bring to the attention of the various users and decision makers about the advantage of solutions like cloud, whether it's the national data center or solutions by other enterprises, to make it easy for our country to transform towards the digital space, even during this COVID period, that digital platforms have become more useful. This was one of our exciting moments at the Bunivu Center, where we had His Excellency the President and various leaders who joined us during the launch. And it's quite an important discussion for us today. So I invite all of us to today's webinar that we discuss the various aspects relating to decisions on investment in respect to ICT infrastructure and the advantage of taking or using already established infrastructure for enterprises, both private and the public. And also we are privileged that within our panelists, we are very able professionals and leaders in various institutions of technology firms, and we will be able to get more insight about the infrastructure that are available. The National Data Center at Conza, we are privileged that we've been able to do it to global standards. It's a Tier 3 Uptime Institute certified data center, and we've continued to ensure we've got sufficient certifications. We have also various services that we can provide, software as a service, hardware as infrastructure, hardware, and also we've laid the necessary infrastructure to ensure it is sufficient redundancies. We have put up a disaster recovery center that will ensure the services are enjoyed by the various users. So I will stop there, and without much ado, want to invite our chief guest today, who is our PS, Jerome Ocheng, to make his remarks. Before we go, because we also want to hear from our panelists and later also open give time to all the participants to engage in this very important discussion. So it's now my pleasure to invite PS Jerome Ocheng. Welcome, PS.
Well, thank you very much, CEO, for the great welcoming address and giving a very clear overview of where we are coming from and where we are going. And that's also going to play a very important role in this particular great conversation that we are having this afternoon. So to Engineer John Tanui, the CEO, Conza Technopolis Development Authority, distinguished speakers and panelists, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is indeed my pleasure to join you this afternoon as we discuss what I would describe as really a very exciting topic that speaks to the ongoing trend that we should all take note of. The theme, from CAPEX to OPEX, making the big IT switch, is particularly timely, considering the businesses are increasingly automating their operation in view of the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the growing need to cut costs associated with setting up ICT infrastructure. In July this year, a study conducted by Gartner indicated that global IT spending is poised to grow by 9% in the year 2021 to $4.2 trillion US. In 2019, IT spending globally stood at $2.8 trillion US, with the trends indicating that a switch to the use of enterprise cloud services. According to the forecast, IT spending is accelerating ahead of revenue expectations. Businesses are steadily turning the focus on incurring expenditure on the capacity needed to deliver on their business objectives and are now much more willing to invest in technology that has a direct and clear tie to business outcomes. More and more organizations are looking for partners who can think past the digital sprints of 2020 and be more intentional in their digital transformation effort in 2021 and beyond in order to differentiate themselves in a highly competitive market. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this backdrop that today's exciting webinar was organized. The webinar seeks to encourage companies to treat IT as an ongoing expense on a recurring basis as opposed to a one-off expenditure. In so doing, companies will allow the growing pool of IT vendors to provide tailor-made solutions that fit with their current and their future needs. This is part of the reason why the Konza Technopolis Development Authority, KOTDA, exists. KOTDA is the implementing agency of the Konza Technopolis, a flagship project of the Kenya Vision 2030 that aims to transform Kenya into a newly industrializing, middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens by the year 2030. KOTDA seeks to develop a sustainable smart city and an innovation hub that will serve as a model that will be replicated across the entire country. As a smart city, Konza will draw and learn from data supplied by connected devices and sensors enabled throughout the city to provide, amongst other, optimal wastewater management, public transit facilities, and security, while at the same time delivering real-time insight to the residents of the Technopolis. By leveraging on the smart city framework, Konza will be able to optimize its city services, creating a sustainable city that responds directly to the needs of its residents, its workers, and at the same time, its visitors. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key components of the implementation of a smart city framework at Konza has been the Konza National Data Center, which was commissioned by His Excellency the President in July this year. The Konza National Data Center exists to serve both the government and the private sector with high-quality, world-class services to support their ICT needs. The center, which is also known as the Konza Ubunifu Center, is a state-of-the-art Tier 3 data center offering diverse, high-end cloud services to government and private enterprises. It has been designed and implemented in compliance with the international standards and best practices such as the Telecommunication Industry Association, TIA 942201 accreditation, the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, Gold certification, and is also Uptime Institute Tier 3 certified. The data center is supported by AI-based iManager data center infrastructure management system that manages resources such as power, cooling, and space to optimize utilization, relying on AI to intelligently manage the allocation, deallocation, and operation of the assets for improved operational efficiency and reliability. The Konza National Data Center offers diverse cloud services spread across software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and collaboration such as bare metal services, cloud computing, data backup services, email hosting, web hosting, video conferencing infrastructure, virtual desktop infrastructure, to name but a few. In addition, the center is equipped with multiple stable connectivity options, assuring reliability of the services hosted. I am indeed happy to state that The center has a dedicated team of professionals who support our customers with migration services, training, and also a 24/7 support services. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I urge you all to consider leveraging on the available infrastructure at the Konza National Data Center to support your ICT needs, and also invite you to get in touch with the very competent team at Konza Technopolis to guide you through the onboarding process. Finally, I want to wish you all very fruitful deliberations as you discuss ways of reducing the cost or associated with ICT infrastructure as we work together to position Kenya as a global digital innovation hub. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you so very much, our PS. You have kept time. Thank you so very much. At this juncture, PS, allow us to invite Dan Mwangi from the NTV, even as I let our guests know that we are now live on NTV. Dan, if you can switch on your camera. The next session of the program will be handled by Dan Mwangi, who will invite our presenters for the remainder part of the session and to also moderate the panel discussion. I'll come in later to support him with the question and answer session. I want to believe that Dan, you are ready to take it up from here. We are waiting for the ICT team to enable his camera. Dan is already here. All right. If you can get him his camera enabled, Felix should be able to take up the program from here. Dan, as we wait for your camera to be enabled, you can kick off with your voice. All right, I'll proceed to invite Mr. Markus Tyson, who is the Director, Cloud and Data Center Solutions Huawei, to take us through a session on towards the digital future and the role of cloud computing. Mr. Markus, are you with us? Great. We'll allow Mr. Markus to take it up from here, and then Dan Mwangi will join in as soon as his camera is enabled. Once again, team, we are now live on NTV, and take it up, Mr. Markus.
Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and panelists. So my name is Markus from Huawei. I will be taking you through a short presentation on our Huawei Cloud. Yeah, and obviously, I think today we are going to address 4 key questions. Right, the first key question which we're going to address, pertaining to cloud, obviously, is if only non-core applications. Right, I think it's a common question. Is it true that only non-core applications can be moved to the cloud? Well, that's the first question which we are gonna discuss. The second question, which is again one of everybody's common question, is cloud secure as compared to traditional on-premise systems? Well, again, I think it's a big question when we actually talk about security. Yeah, which again we will address that as a question. The third question,
kindly apologies for my interruption. We are live on TV, and it will be great to see your face because it's more visual than voice. Kindly switch on your video.
Okay, just give me a moment. If you can see me, just one moment. Okay, are you able to see me?
Yes,
okay.
I can see.
Okay, well, just give me a moment. And then obviously for the third question, right after the security, we're actually going to talk about if pertaining to workloads, yeah, is it how easy it is to deploy on cloud versus if it's going to be deployed on a traditional on-prem solutions. So again, that will be the third question that we'll actually be addressing on this section. Then the last question, which again is also based on today's topic, is deployments on cloud going to be cheaper versus on premise? So again, I think a very interesting question, which we will address in this session. So 4 key questions. The first question, right, which is always on everybody's lips, is can only non-core applications be moved to the cloud? The answer is actually no. Yeah. So technically speaking, whether it's going to be core or non-core, from Huawei's perspective, we actually are anticipating an all application scenario, right, which includes critical application cloudification. And obviously, as you can see, we do have a very structured framework, right, which includes our best practices and methodology. So whether we are actually talking about SAP, ERP movements, we actually, if we are even talking about Oracle ERP migration, right, or ESB migration, Sybil migration, or Exchange migration, these are basically the general solutions, right, which can be moved to the cloud. Then, if we talk about from an x86 perspective, so long as Windows-based, Linux-based, and if your hypervisors are actually based on VMware or Hyper-V, same thing, it can be moved to the cloud as well. In fact, not just move or migrate, lift and shift, it can also be consolidated and integrated. Then again, technical solutions wise, the common ones from migration perspective, we talk about Unix. Yeah, so whether Unix is actually talking about Solaris and HP UX workloads, storage backup migration. So again, whether it's SAN migration or NAS migration, or even from cloud to cloud, we talk about AWS S3 to Azure to Huawei Cloud. Technically speaking, all these are solutions that is possible in today's context of cloud. Then we actually talk about the different scenarios. As you can see, the different scenarios we talk about from traditional data center to private cloud. So I think this is one pretty established scenario that's currently in the market, right? So customers will have their traditional data centers. They also have what we call the on-prem private cloud. So how do they actually move from this traditional setup to a private cloud setup? Then there are some customers whereby we talk about from a CAPEX and moving into a pure OPEX perspective. So it's traditional data center setup into a public cloud setup. So technically speaking, full CAPEX into full OPEX. Then we talk about from a hybrid CAPEX OPEX perspective, private cloud to public cloud. So this is the third scenario. Last scenario, which is also pretty common if depending on customers that wanting to establish a hybrid cloud strategy or a multi-cloud strategy. So we talk about AWS Azure or to Huawei Cloud to Google Cloud. So technically speaking, third-party cloud, one third-party cloud to another public third-party cloud. So this is another very common scenario. So what at Huawei, we basically also advocate on a very established framework or methodology in terms of the migration service. We will basically adhere to the assessment stage, whereby we will assess your applications, we will assess your infrastructure, we will assess your general services, whether it's core, non-core, and then we will also do application profiling, yeah, so the dependency of your applications upon one another, the intimacy modeling, and then we will then determine what we call the migration strategy. So migration strategy, not to be mistaken as a complete lift and shift. It can be in parallel, it can work in a bimodal approach, and of course, it can also be a lift and shift approach. Then once we have finished the assessment, we will go into the planning and design. Yeah, the planning and design. So a cloud readiness assessment that formulates around it. So we will basically assess and plan around your existing capacity. We will also look in terms of your resources that's going to be required, maybe from a 5-year plan perspective, from a 7-year plan perspective. So we will also then study your cost of investments versus your return of investments. The migration architecture, again, is also very important. Remember, most organizations and institutions, they do not start off from a piece of white paper. So you have your existing infrastructure, you have your existing architecture. How do you actually migrate and integrate? So technically speaking, from a bimodal approach, consolidation, integration, and migration. So this is where we talk about the wave plan. Yeah, the wave plan is not a lift and shift approach. It's either in phases, in waves, or in parallel. So and last but not least, we'd actually go into the solution design. So the solution design will be if it's actually going to be based on the public cloud,
Is it going to be based on a private cloud, or is it going to be based on a hybrid model? Okay. Then we go into the verification and testing, which we have a very comprehensive test environment resources. We will basically create a migration environment. We will test and verify the solution. So long and short, a proof of concept. So we will create proof of concepts in test environments, and once it's verified and the testing for the UATs has been tested successful, we will then move on into the implementation stage. So where the implementation stage is concerned, whether to prepare the actual environment, to set up the necessary platforms, cloud, on-prem, off-prem, to replicate the data, right? Whether it's a HA or whether it's backup, we will then go through all these verifications, and all the setup, once it's being implemented, we will transfer it to the operations team. So there will be a skills transfer, right, to your operations team, and that will usually also take a period of time. And it will be part of the handover to the ops. Then last but not least, we talk about the operations itself. So operations, remember, is also quite complex. Okay, I wouldn't use the word complex. It's quite tedious. So remember, operations can be from your own team, your in-house team. It can also be third-party vendors. And remember, where cloud is concerned, there are many layers. You have infrastructure layer, you have platform layer, you have data layer, you have software layer. So when you want to operate the cloud and you're talking about the migration support and the technical support, you have to be very specific to the layers of services on where you intend to have that operations in terms of the support. So again, from Huawei, what we are saying is that not only non-core application can move to the cloud. As you can see, we do have a very comprehensive, in fact, holistic application scenarios over here. So long and short, all applications, right, including critical applications, it can be moved to the cloud one way or another.
Thank you very much, Markus, for that great presentation. I'd like to invite Dan Mwangi.
Thank you very much, June, for that, and as well as Daktari, as we call them here in Kenya, Dr. Markus. We thank you for your insight, and thank you once again for all being part of this. It's quite an insightful thing. I feel like I've gone to class today, so I'm really enjoying my class, and I hope I'll pass the exam when the time comes to that. So that's Dr. Markus Tae-Soon-Wan, who was speaking on the role of cloud computing towards a digital future. Now I want to go to our second presentation in this segment of presentations, which is debunking cloud myths. Is it always true? There are many questions that are there, and we're going to be having the person who present this is Mr. David Bunei, who's the managing director of Kenya Hub, that's Oracle, who's going to take the stage now and speak to us about this.
Really appreciate, thank you, and really great afternoon. Just before I have my colleague to present, I just want to thank Concert Technopolis team for setting this up. It is really timely session for all of us. We are in the middle of the cross section where we're seeing a transition and transformation of technology, and I think amazing opportunity for all of us to experience it as we adopt cloud, and our businesses, Kenyans and the region overall, really adopting cloud. And I just also want to congratulate John and team for launching the second strategic plan for Konza. I think that's really a great milestone, and we look forward to continue partnering with Konza on this journey. And overall, to thank you for the leadership and appreciate the innovation that continues to happen in this country. I want to hand over to my colleague, Makule, who's going to present on behalf of Oracle. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Can Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, so thank you, everyone, and thank you for having me today in this call. I'm Makbule Tuncerli. I'm the Business Development Director for ECMEA at Oracle. And I also come with a large techno park experience because I worked for 17 years in one of the first companies to be established at the time as a startup in the first techno park in Turkey. And then it evolved to being one of the largest software vendors in the country. So I like and I love the techno conspiracy. And I really enjoy the initiative that is undergone by the Kenyan government and the Konza Techno Park. So thank you again for having me here. And today we are going to discuss on the role of the cloud with the governments and how can the role of the cloud impact the digital transformation on the government. Looking from a market and a world perspective, actually, we are ready to say that the future is already here. I mean, the workplace has changed. We've all been working from home lately. The business model dynamics have changed. People are shifting from a product selling to a service selling model. Citizens and needs and wants are changing. Everyone is requesting a personalized experience. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, robots are also in our life, the autonomous technologies as well. And we need to respond. Cloud, I see cloud as a mean to respond to all these trends with agility. So, and the research also are supporting this. Here there is a research which is, I would say, quite not recent. So even in 2016, Deloitte has spotted that a cloud-based digital transformation is a key enabler on modern government. And we have seen the trend in the past 5 years that the impact of cloud has gone raising up each and every day. And government and also private sector, they are shifting their IT investment from the on-premise technologies to the cloud technologies. There is a significant shift in the cloud. Looking from a government perspective, governments all over the world, they have adopted cloud strategies and policies globally. So they are not just embarking into a digital transformation, they have a structured approach, they have cloud strategy first approach that they are implementing in their countries. And why? Because they've seen the benefits. The governments are seeing the benefits of moving their high-performing workloads to the cloud. They are seeing the benefits from a cost perspective, so the cost is reduced. They are seeing the benefits from a capacity because it's easier to scale up in the cloud, and they have access to more computing, more storage. From an agility and flexibility model, because they can run their jobs at any time with a lot of on-demand, high-performing computing capacity, performance, in terms of technical performance plus the price performance, and also looking from a business and application perspective, innovation. Because especially with cloud, the ability to deliver new features, new functions, and to leverage the emerging technologies without any additional cost is also an important aspect of that the governments are evaluating.
Yeah.
But looking from a strategic perspective, how should a strategy of cloud in a government be? I'm proud to say that we have a complete cloud strategy at Oracle, a unified one. So starting from the infrastructure, continuing with a platform, databases, autonomous databases, application hosting platform, and we have also a SaaS, full SaaS offering for the critical business applications covering several pillars. We are a leader in the market with our undisputed security and performance and price. So our solutions are able to serve the enterprise and the government's missions by delivering the same services that the private industry or the private sector is reaching to the government and supporting all the citizens' needs. And we support also a transformation of the existing workloads to the cloud and to the SaaS applications. When it comes to cloud, there is a lot of myths in terms of security, in terms of latency, in terms of data sovereignty regulations. So there are different requirements for different workloads. There are different requirements for different countries, but the beauty with the Oracle Cloud offering is that we offer all the technical capabilities, meeting also the requirements on security, data sovereignty. So we have what is called the Oracle Dedicated Region Clouded Customer. So next to the public cloud, you have the ability to have all the cloud services provided by Oracle into a dedicated region in the country, compliant with the data sovereignty regulation. From an application perspective, because moving the workloads to the cloud is important and the value is seen with the application itself, what we have is we have an enabler of the transformation via our application solution. So we are now on what we call the 4th generation of ERP solutions. We are now in an augmented back office that combines not only the technology, but it combines the digital technology with the human workforce. We offer a full suite of applications that covers all the needs. And why the governments around the world, they are embracing this transformational strategy? Because they see the value. It's mandatory with the technology evolved, but it is also very visible in terms of value. You have a fully connected back office application, you have the analytics capabilities, you have an end-to-end digital automation, so you have a cloud infrastructure which is complete and built from the ground up for the needs of the governments. And coming up to some examples, we have the UK Home Office that is set a complete new standard with a full implementation of a cloud solution for all their critical workloads, and you can see how they can be able to improve their productivity, the usability of application by standardizing all their processes and all their reporting. So what has been delivered in 15 months, and this is really important, the speed, would take normally 5 years to be delivered in a traditional import. And also, I wanted to share another example with the Innovation Quarter of Netherlands, which is a similar organization that they deal by supporting the startup and the new economy and trying to attract foreign investments for Holland. They are also implementing different solutions from Oracle to support a lot of foreign companies to set up their businesses and expand their companies in Netherlands. So you can see that the value is not only from a technology and IT perspective, the perceived value is on the business. You run a more agile, you run a more resilient business, and you run a more innovative business with the cloud. So our solutions are covering all jurisdictions of governments, from utilities or government-owned companies, from central governments, and also financial international institutions. Oracle is here and proud to be a partner with the Konza city to be able to develop together joint cloud strategies for Kenya. Thank you for your time, and we will be here in case any questions.
Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. We do appreciate it, and definitely good to start seeing and understand even more some of these myths being debunked, because we're in an era of information, disinformation, misinformation. So we have to be very cautious about that. So our next presentation is on the IT costs, CAPEX versus OPEX, and does it really matter? So at this point, I'll invite Jackson Kimeu, who's a cloud specialist at the Kenya Medical Training College, to come and give us his presentation on the same. Jackson, karibu.
Right. Thank you very much, distinguished guests, the panelists, my fellow speakers, and the audience. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on board. My name is Jackson Kimeu, a cloud specialist in cloud governance, cloud security, cyber security, and other different areas in ICT professionalism. First of all, let me take this opportunity to congratulate Konza Technopolis Development Authority for having achieved several ICT projects towards making Konza City a smart city. The achievement of Vision 2030 is going to be not only a game changer in our nation, but the whole Africa. Konza City is picking up so well in terms of already having achieved the horizontal infrastructure, and now already the Tier 3 data center is up and running. And that brings to our today's topic. Our today's webinar theme, that is CAPEX to OPEX, right? We need to discuss and understand what is the meaning of these two terms, what is the comparisons, and which is the best model to be used by different clients within our nation to migrate from on-premises to the cloud. When you talk about CAPEX, we just simply mean capital expenditure. This is basically the initial investment that is incurred by an organization to cater for ICT infrastructure. And when I talk about ICT infrastructure, I mean purchase of servers, purchase of software licenses, trying to come up with a server room with all the equipment, all the racks and everything. Yeah, this lies on CAPEX. On the other side, we have OPEX, which is a operational expenditure, or rather what we mean with operational expenses, things to do with the daily or monthly incurring expenses within an organization. And some of the examples we have is things like paying salaries to employees, paying rent, things like cost of goods, utilities. All those lies within the operational expenditure. All right. And now, this now brings the point, CAPEX, OPEX, which is the best of that you can be able to advise a business, an organization, ministry, a parastatal that is looking forward to move their on-premise data or other workloads to the cloud, right? And there is quite big benefits when we talk about the OPEX model, which is the best model that we can be able to advise to give to different organizations on the same, right? So with OPEX model, we purely talking about no incurring costs, no CAPEX at all. A client is just buying a space in the cloud, that is now the storage cloud, right? And then from there, the workloads that is seated on premise is taken to the cloud. And there are so many benefits, things to do with, a user will not be able to to manage the CAPEX utilities, right? Now, what will be left here is you will be able to enjoy things like buy and go, right? Things to do with scalability, agility, availability of resources 24/7, because your resources have been hosted in the cloud and probably at a Tier 3 data center. With time, when it comes to deliberation and discussions, we'll be able to see why do we call a data center Tier 3 and what are some of the benefits, for you hosting your services in that cloud in terms of security, in terms of availability, and those few things that I've mentioned, right? Now, cloud. What is all about cloud and what is the benefits to anyone? When you just put or rather host your data in the cloud, it's simply very secure. It's simply very much available. You can be able to access it anytime. And I'm going to give you a very good example. Look at social platforms like Facebook. We're talking of Gmail. We're talking of Twitter. There is no any single day you have ever woken up and found that those particular platforms are down. They are on downtime. Why? Because they have been hosted in a very robust environment. And this now the environments that we are talking about, migrating your data from on-premise to the cloud. So my speech is very, very short. Of course, we are going to fully interact with the audience when it comes to interaction in terms of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jackson, for that. And he's actually raised a good point that we are going to invite everybody to just, those of us who may have questions, even as the speakers go along, we're just going to request you to put them in the chat box. Then we shall sample some of them and have the relevant speakers respond to them so that we can ensure that we are actually addressing some of the concerns you may have, some of the things that you may need some expounding on, etc. So just remember to use the chat box function there for that. And now our other presentation now, which is the fourth presentation before we get into the panel discussion, is the topic here is security and privacy, the impact of cloud design / architecture. And the person who's going to take us through this is Evans Kahudhu, who is a security consultant. So Evans, I was about to say the floor is yours, but I realized it's not a floor. The stream is yours.
Dan, I'll take the screen, and I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Carry on.
Thank you very much. So for me, I'll jump straight into security and strictly stick to two issues, security and privacy. So on high level, I think everyone is concerned about their data security, whether you're going to the cloud or not. That is something that we are all concerned. So without going further into details in terms of security, there's three things we always talk about: the confidentiality of your information, the integrity, and availability. In other words, as far as security is concerned, we are saying my data should only be accessed by the person who is authorized to see it, and that should be guaranteed whether it's in the cloud or not. Integrity means my data should remain in the state it was, should not be modified, and if it's modified, I should have a way of knowing it was modified. Availability, again, when I need access to my data, should always be available. Not this thing at the system ziko chini. That is not acceptable in security. And the next part, which is very critical, but unfortunately is a cultural issue, is the issue of privacy. We have what we call personally identifiable information. We've not learned as a culture to keep privacy of information. We see people posting online about people's medical information, financial, all those things. However, as we move to technology, we need to address it conclusively, and that's why as we move to the cloud, this is something that we must deal with. Now, in general, there are concerns that anybody who is willing or planning to migrate to the cloud is going to have. The first question is the data security. Again, will my data be secure? One of the things is, if you look at a cloud setup, and I'll take Kotda for example, If you look at Konza, the way they've set up, they're telling you, you are concerned about the security of your data. If your users are using desktops in your office, chances are they're also copying that data and they're selling it for profit. But you come to Konza, they tell you, we have virtual desktop infrastructure. In other words, it's the same desktop experience at your office, but the employee cannot copy out that data. So that becomes very important for you if data security is very important. And this is some of the cloud offerings we are seeing, which are coming to resolve this issue of data security. Konza is also telling you that, listen, you can use any video conferencing software out there, but you have no control. So perhaps these guys are listening into your conversation. But here they have video conferencing as a solution where it's within a private network. You can discuss everything you need, and everything is restricted to whoever you want to have access. So what they're telling you is that our cloud offering is giving you the data security, be it in video format, be it in VDI. And of course, when it comes to hosting, we'll talk about it later. The idea is they can be able to guarantee you the 3 principles of security, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, you look at something very important. People say cloud is cheap, which is true. So what do? They host their website in Cloud A. When you host a website in Cloud A, the next thing you hear, the cloud was hacked and 200 websites were compromised. I think this is a story we've had. It's a broken record in Kenya. So what happens? What happens is that when one website is compromised, they are all contained in one bucket. So in other words, if one website is insecure, everything else is insecure. That is what we are saying. As you move to the cloud, you need to choose wisely. So the setup with the Konza cloud is such that they are aware that you don't want to risk somebody else, one of your customer, because the other customer is misbehaving. So you look at now the cloud, it's been set up in what we call a virtual private cloud. So what we are saying is this: you bring customer A, who actually is insecure, but that should not affect customer B. So data isolation becomes very important as you make that decision. So if your concern is more like, my data will be compromised because of sharing space, then we are saying the virtual private cloud becomes your solution. The other thing which you will understand is data. You are on Facebook, you sign up, the next day you see your data is being used for other things. Or you are an M-Pesa client, the next thing you are a member of a political party. This data sprawl is real. So question is, the person who is hosting your data, can they be able to guarantee that the data stays there? Because this is where privacy now comes into play. Can they guarantee that once you host the data with us, that issue of like people having your data will not happen? And again, this is what we are looking at in terms of the current cloud that Konza is offering. It's able to guarantee you that your data is yours. Because remember, it's a virtual private cloud, which means you have total control of your data. The other important aspect is Data Protection Act is in play. It says any personal information, especially civil registration data, should not leave the country. For obvious reason, of course. So question is, as you choose the cloud, are they telling you where they are located physically? I don't think I need to tell you where Konza is in terms of jurisdiction. So you satisfy that sort of compliance control by hosting locally. And the other thing they tell you, we also have recovery service. Of course, being a government sort of institution, the recovery is also within the country. So you're able to satisfy data residency requirement if, let's say, that is what you're looking for in a cloud. And of course, the other thing is portability. You've had developers develop applications online. They make very good applications. Soon, they want to move from one provider to the other. What happens? They are told, oh, sorry, the data format only can exist within our platform. You cannot migrate to the next platform. That is vendor locking. And again, that in English is what we call a Catholic wedding. You are locked, you're done. In other words, you have no option. This is not what you want for your business. You want a cloud provider who uses open standards such that regardless of where you want to move, you can move with your data without having the issue of being told you cannot move. The next thing we talk about retention. Some people you host with them, when you're done, they are left with data. You know, data is not like something physical, that when you move, you know you've moved it. The residual data, what do they do with it? We've seen people sell this data online in the dark web and so on and so forth. So with all these concerns, we are saying you are now getting them addressed in this sort of Konza cloud, in the sense that since we are also talking about virtual private cloud, you have total control of your virtual machine. So data retention, it's you destroying the machine and you're good to go. The next thing is now the trust challenge. You have data, but who is responsible for the security of the data? If you come, let's say, to infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, again, responsibility is defined based on which one you choose. The next question is, who has access to your data and to do what? Like I've mentioned, I just came to sign up for M-Pesa. Why am I a member of a political party? Very critical. The next thing is the cloud provider. How is their supply chain? Do they acquire their servers from Mwaneki and Sons, who are known to actually supply hardware which is actually not IEEE certified? Or is it Dan Mwangi, who has a briefcase shop for the purpose of this project, and then tomorrow when you need spare parts, they actually go belly up because they cannot be able to actually get the spare parts? This is something that is of a concern for a lot of people. And of course, regulatory compliance, are you compliant? So from this slide, what changes now is, as a cloud service provider, trust becomes a vulnerability for you. So if you're going to be a cloud service provider, you must treat trust as a vulnerability. So now your goal is to mitigate this trust. How do you mitigate? You come up with an architecture which can be able to resolve this security issue of trust. And what we are saying is this: you must implement a framework called Zero Trust. Zero Trust means don't trust, verify. You must verify everything. A good example is we're in the COVID era. When you're in your office, you always go into a boardroom, you are wearing a mask, you have sanitized. During tea break, all of you remove masks and start having tea and chatting. Why are you trusting that the person next to you doesn't have COVID? If all of us would actually follow the health guidelines, I think we can see a drastic reduction in COVID, because all of us will be verifying, is this person what I'm saying is this: at every layer of your infrastructure for the cloud, you must be able to put zero trust. In other words, verify. I'll give you a quick walkthrough of the Konza cloud, where we are saying at the application level, you must have identity and access management. What that means, every user must have a username and password which has been confirmed. After you authenticate that person exists, you must ask yourself, what authorization level do they have? Because again, just because you are logged in doesn't mean you have full access. So you are able to agree, like at the application level, we are able to filter these people. You go to the operating system level. Who are the users who control? The system administrators. Can the system administrator get access to the application? Because that is not their role, and so on and so forth. You come to the database. In database, we are talking about privacy. Is the data encrypted? If somebody was to steal it, are we going to know that the data was stolen, and so on and so forth? At the network level, we know they are hackers. As they try to hack, what happens? We must be able to verify everything. In cloud computing, the hypervisor is the software which now manages the virtual machines from the real hardware. If you get hold of that, the damage you can do to the cloud is actually unbelievable. So what you're saying is, what security have you put there? Then of course, we have the bare metal. You have employees, you have workers who come to clean. They have access to the bare metal as they walk into the data center. What security controls have you put there? So as you go to the Kodda data center, they're telling you, no, you are a cleaner. Before you go past this, you must be escorted. As you're being escorted, they're telling you you're on camera, and so on and so forth. So what we're saying is this: if you apply zero trust, it means that even the CEO of Kodda, just because he's a CEO, should not get access to the server. Because you are saying there's a process for you to get access to the server. And this now is where now we are able to mitigate security issue. Number two, you must design like as if there's a disaster coming tomorrow. In security, we say it's a matter of when. It's not about if, when. hacking or being compromised is a must. So what you do, you must always design for failure, such that you know, if I only have one server, tomorrow it can be hacked. And if it's hacked, I don't want my business to go down. What do? I switch over automatically to the backup or to the other redundant link. So from the service provider of the internet, and I'll confess this is actually the high-level architecture of what we are dealing with, is we are saying the service provider is not one. Because if tomorrow service provider one throws a tantrum and tells you you haven't been paying, you must not close shop because the service provider is not providing you connectivity. Service provider 2 is there as you resolve the issue with service provider 1. We also have seen fiber being cut. So what we are saying is this: your infrastructure must be redundant because, again, we know disasters do happen. The other thing is this: it must be elastic. You know, you have your computer. The next thing unasema imejaa, I need to buy another hard drive. What do? You shut down the current computer, copy everything, move to the next computer. That is not actually what we want in a cloud infrastructure. If it's the hard drive, if it's the CPU, if it is the memory, what we are saying is this: keep adding as you grow. And this is now the design that has been implemented at CODA. What they're telling you is, we will not shut our computers off. If you want more space, yeah, fine, we'll add. If you want less, we'll remove. And this, what it does in a cloud infrastructure, it now brings a lot of high availability and dependability by the client. And this is what we need as you choose your cloud infrastructure. The other very important part is this: where the data is stored, remember, it has to actually have the right security. So it is always recommended mix and match the vendors for the storage, because if by accident one of the vendors' solution had a factory defect, it means your data is gone. But if you have different storage providers, which is again what we are seeing in the current situation, what we are saying is this: there is actually confidence moving forward that if one fails, we have another one in existence. And of course, very important, you must be able to log every activity in the cloud. Every layer that I showed in the previous slides, you must be able to log and tell who did what, when, how. This actually is very critical in terms of also taking the insider. Every action they do, you should be able to log it. And this is where also, if you look at Macbell presentation and Bunei, the Oracle prides itself in something called Audit Vault. What they're telling you is that we log everything and you cannot be able to delete it. So what happens? That information helps the customer to know that if anything goes wrong, I can be able to get the logs either for law enforcement reason or for incident response. And what we are saying is we must log at every level, and this is what is implemented. Very important, you must know when things go wrong. You must get alert and monitoring. In privacy, if somebody's data has been breached, you must get alert immediately and be able to tell them. So this alert is very critical. So if you look at like the Konza Data Center, they've set up a network monitoring center. What happens? There is a dashboard which shows people the health of the systems, so that if anything was to go south, you don't need to be told. You are the first one to know because you already have implemented an alerting and monitoring system to be able to tell when there's a problem within your system. This is also something that you extend to your customers to add that trust that if anything goes wrong, you have the visibility, because with visibility comes trust. And of course, we look at integrated management. All your tools and all your applications must report to a central database or to a central dashboard. For them to report to a central dashboard, it means that they must be based on international standards. Never allow any solution to be vendor-centric, because it means only that vendor can be able to troubleshoot or use that system. When you use standardized systems, which is now what we are seeing at the current setup, we are saying you can be able to automate and orchestrate. Just like Acquire, if anybody is out of sync, there's a problem. But if everybody is like in an orchestra is actually being conducted at the same time, what happens is we're able to tell when things go wrong. When you apply a change in one place, it should be able to be seen in the whole system. So this dashboard becomes very important when you integrate everything to the data center, and you have one-stop window where you are able to tell everything. And of course, last but not least, you need third parties to come and check what you've done. Is it based on best practice? So as a person who is looking for a data center with security, these are some of the things you need to look for. Does that data center have certifications? For instance, ISO 27001, that says you've already implemented all the recommended best practice security control. If I'm a financial institution, does this data center have controls to actually be able to confirm that they are PCI DSS, which is the certification for the payment card industry? And then there's also what we call the Cloud Security Alliance. So at the end of the day, people ask, can you guarantee me 100% security? I say no. Security is a shared responsibility, and this is what happens in the cloud. You need to know where you feature in the cloud. As a customer, what is your responsibility? As a cloud provider, what is your responsibility? And this chart over here is showing you the responsibility for the different people within the cloud infrastructure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that insightful. I mean, you've taken us through a whole class, Evans. Thank you very much for that. Some interesting insights there and questions that are in our everyday lives, may put it that way. And I can see people are already putting up questions on the chat function, which we are compiling. Then we'll have a question and answer session later on where we shall have the relevant persons speak about it. So at this point, some of them are not questions, so I could just read them out. Like Magdalene Mwendo says, great explanation from Mr. Jackson Kimeu. That one at least was not a question, so we can read it and then pick it up. Then Joseph Gitao responds and says, very great and informative on the same. So I can see some of the questions here will need me to later on bring on board the CEO of Konza Technopolis, because there's a number of questions here which we shall pick up at that point. But now, before we get there, now we get into our session where we're going to be having a panel discussion, which is going to be comprised of various people. One, we shall be having Hesbon Malwei, who's the Director of ICT at the Ministry of ICT. We have Mr. David Bunei, who was there slightly earlier on introducing his colleague, and he is the Managing Director, Kenya Hub Oracle. We have Calvin Luaka, Technical Advisor, Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, EGPAF, I believe that's what it's called. Gilbert Molili, the Founder and Executive Director of Risk Africa Novartis Limited, and Mr. John Muraya, who's the Head of ICT Solutions at MTN Business. Thank you all for being part of this. So I'll request that those of us who are our panelists, once you're speaking, just for the sake of clarity and just to avoidance of doubt and any kind of hitch, you will put on your camera and your microphone, of course. And then in case you'd want to just contribute, you could let me know on the side to a question that I've probably directed to someone else. But nonetheless, I guess it's a good time to just get into the discussion altogether, because it's one that when you listen to it very keenly, it actually is relevant to pretty much everyone. But there's some of the misconceptions or perceptions that it is only for the big companies. It's for the blue chip companies to think about the whole cloud conversation. But when you listen to what the presenters have shared, as well as just read up on it, you realize it's not just for those individuals. So I want to just begin with David Bunei, just because we had a short chat earlier on, and maybe you could just tell us from where you sit, what do you feel, and this is, I'll be picking some of the questions also from the chat because they're relevant to what we're saying. What do you feel are some of the primary benefits of moving from, you know, the CAPEX to move to the OPEX in regards to just going heavier on cloud? What are some of the benefits? And one of the things that I would even not mind any of the other panelists jumping in and telling us on is, one of the questions is, one, the benefits and especially the cost element. People are in business. They don't want you to sell for us, you know, a very good idea, but it's going to end up costing me an arm and 3 legs, even a leg I don't have. David.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. And I think it's a really great question that a lot of businesses, whether small or big, are asking themselves today. If I'm going to invest in IT infrastructure, for that matter, what sort of cost would that look like? Would that mean that I have to spend 90% of my entire budget of my business on IT? Or should I really look at alternatives? And this has been a question that's been going out there for quite a while. The reality is that this conversation that we're having today is quite timely since the advent of connectivity coming into the country or coming into globally. The two items that have really driven sort of great growth in adoption of what you would say cloud is the growth in terms of connectivity. If you look at the countries, and in Kenya in particular, we've got the 4G going in 5G. We've got fiber infrastructure rolled out across pretty much businesses, homes. And then the advent of devices today that you can access devices, quite reasonably, priced reasonably, whether it's a laptop or tablet or your phone, to access services. And that gives an opportunity for any business to really leverage a service that literally reduces the cost of heavy investment in IT infrastructure. And pretty much if you look at a small business, whether you are a shop or a restaurant, or even in Kenya, in agriculture, where businesses that really depend on supplies, whether it's fertilizer or markets where you want to market your products, you do not really want to heavily invest in expensive IT infrastructure that in 2 years' time, they will become obsolete. Or in a few months' time, you will not be able to justify the expansion, or perhaps you overinvested. And the benefit that comes through this, especially for small business or medium business to large enterprises, is you're able to grow your business, especially your priority areas. If you're a financial sector, if you're a small microfinance, if you're a shop, what you can be able to is leverage the service offered by your provider, in this case, a cloud provider, to provide your service for maybe managing your payroll or managing your customers, a CRM solution. Or as Evans mentioned, you got options around infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. So you offer that you take that as a small cost to your business. And the opportunity to scale means that as your business grows, then you can scale it out and increase the demand of that service. If your business scales down or reduces, you can scale it down. And at the very least, what gives you the benefit is cost predictability. The second piece that gives you is around the agility. It means in 1 week, you can be able to deploy a service in a new city, in a new town, without having to worry about your IT teams traveling down to set up the IT infrastructure, setting up connectivity, setting up the applications. This all is done by a provider. And this is really a great opportunity that partnership with organizations like Konza or the cloud service and applications that have been defined perhaps by providers like Oracle or others can leapfrog businesses in terms of cost, leapfrog in terms of being agile in going to market, and providing them an opportunity to collaborate with others. Because with the service, with cloud service, it gives you opportunity to collaborate, partner with mobile payment platforms, partner with courier companies, partner with transporters. And this is really only works well because the technology behind it has been built to support that integration and collaboration. So to summarize it, I would say cloud service does provide an opportunity. It may not look at it, the cost as an item, but you look at the intangible benefits that brings with it once you adopt it. And I think for Kenya, particularly in a country where a significant number of business in agriculture, if you have a small agricultural outfit, you can be able to invest in your core business and have the IT service delivered by a service provider. I do. Dan, that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That good insight. Where there's the cost element, but cost is not always considered a financial engagement altogether. So this is a good pointer to raise because it also addresses some of the questions which are on the chat box. So I'm trying to kind of like double up so we can be more efficient. So we can have that this webinar is almost like on cloud. It's bringing in more efficiency. And I'll request all our panelists, in as much as is possible, to just switch on your cameras so that you can be able to pin your images, so that we can pin your video so that we can have all the participants see you as we still go along. Even then, you'll just switch on your microphone when you're meant to be speaking, and that'll make it a lot more efficient for us. And I want to move quickly to the gentleman who is representing the ministry. That's Hesbon Malueye, Director of ICT in the Ministry of ICT. We have seen there are questions and concerns in regards to safety, which have been brought out both in the presentations and on some of the questions here. So maybe just a sense of offering some sort of affirmation that what is being done from the government's end to ensure that my data is safe, all that I'm doing is safe. There's a part where Evans, who presented earlier, said part of it is with me as an individual as I'm taking care of that. But what is being done from the government side to just ensure that you can inspire some sense of safety and security and confidence in the public in regards to this? That's for Hesbon. We have Hesbon on. If we don't have him, I think just on the same thread, of thought in regards to just the safety, I will just bring in Gilbert Mwalili. We have Gilbert, right? And what many are really concerned about the safety, like has been said, there's the hackers. Hackers are really, doing a number on many people. What kind of, affirmation can you give in addition to what Ivan said earlier on, that don't be too afraid of hackers to progress into the cloud space?
Thank you, Dan, and my fellow guests, if you like. A lot has been said, of course, about security. And I know you're narrowing down to virus attacks and hackers, if you like. Cloud is definitely has a lot of exposures to security risk and on. But basically, it is the cloud solution provider that really, I liked Mr. Kimeu's talk of, especially the certifications that are there. Whether it's in the banking sector, the PCI, the CSA, the ISO 27000 series on information security. These are things that the cloud, providers needs to be able to, to demonstrate that they actually have put in the systems and procedures that are required to have in place. But you know, the more we ask about security, I always ask clients, because I deal with a wide range of institutions, and their concern is always, oh, cloud, is it secure? And you compare to the infrastructure that they have invested in their offices in a small server room somewhere, and you wonder, where is security really? If we are to compare the likes of the Konza National Data Center with the small server room you maintain in your office somewhere there. Of course, I expect security to be more advanced in a data center, and as we provide these cloud solutions, but they should really be designed to give us comfort. I think the moment you're thinking of going cloud, I see it actually just come with comfort, ease of life. I focus on my core business. I don't need to have a very strong ICT department that is, experts in security, experts in database management, administrators, whatnot. You cannot keep all that really, and your core business is not providing IT services. You're probably a government institution providing a certain service, for example. That is not to do with IT. So for me, I find it, it's just the way to go. Looking for cloud to get comfort and focus on where your core business is. I don't know much more maybe to just highlight. Dan, maybe back to you.
Thanks for that. That's definitely a topic that is going to be a concern that will be raised over and over even as we proceed, not only today but beyond that, because even just speaking on some of the comments we're seeing here, that remains a concern. I see like we have Malwei, that's Hezbon Malwei. He's the director of ICT at the ministry. Hezbon, if you're with us now, I think he left. He probably is having, I don't want to make the assumption that he has internet challenges at the Ministry of ICT. It would sound a bit special, but nonetheless, we hope we can get him on board, because we definitely would like to have some of the input from the government side. And I just want to bring in Calvin Lwaka, who's the technical advisor of the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. That's EGPAF. I believe I said it right, EGPAF. And as far as you're concerned, for the organization you represent, have you gone into using the cloud, the cloud computing, the cloud dynamic of having your data, etc.? Are you the kind of organization or that would actually, or yourself, would you advocate for the same because of how valuable it is?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation is a global leader in managing HIV/AIDS, and in Kenya, it has a project it's implementing in Homa Bay County. Yeah, one of the high burden counties in the country. And what that simply means that almost all health facilities within Homa Bay County do offer HIV services, and HIV is a lifelong disease for now. So it means you have to keep on monitoring the patients that are receiving those services just to ensure they are okay and they are able to live a normal life when they are managing the disease. And part of that is managing their health records. Yeah, so we have an electronic health record system that has been put in each of the facilities so that they can manage the patients. And we do support 165 health facilities. Yeah, so just thinking about installing computers and networks, or putting servers and networks within those health facilities, require about 9,000 USD just to set up one health facility. So if you're talking about 165, you can imagine what that is. Yeah, but we're able to get Konza and we move towards cloud. And what we can say is that the setup that we have had at Konza for all the 165 health facilities, yeah, we have used a cost of about $3,000 US. So that's about a third of the cost that will have been expected earlier in terms of setting up. But that 3,000 just also includes just managing those services for a whole year. Yeah, so we can say that the benefit which I've seen from the Konza Cloud has been quite significant. Now, as a program, because we are supporting Ministry of Health in Homa Bay, we are able to have visibility of all the patient records at the time which we need to see that, so that we do have timely interventions. Then we have saved a lot of man hours. Previously, we could not reach all the 165 facilities. The traditional setup, we could only do 49 health facilities. But now, and the 49 health facilities were giving us headache, because when a facility goes down, and Homa Bay borders Lake Victoria, so sometimes you also have to use a boat to go get to the facility, try to resolve the issues that are there. But moving to Konza Cloud, within 30 minutes, we are able to sort out the issues at the facility, and they're up, back and running, and the services continue without interruption. And then the system that we use keep on getting upgrades frequently. And previously, it could take about a month to just do the upgrades in the 49 health facilities. Yes, you can say we do have TeamViewer, and sometimes internet connections was a problem in some of those facilities. Yeah, but with Konza now, we're able to upgrade all the 165 facilities in less than 12 hours once the new release has come out. So those are some of the benefits which we are seeing. And it was mentioned that scaling up is quite easy. Yeah, David just mentioned that if you're going to another town, you don't really have to have a dedicated IT person to do that. So for us, scaling up to all those 165 facilities, we took about 3 months when we got into Konza to do all that work. So you can imagine 49 facilities being done in about 5 to 6 years, but now just doing all the 165 facilities within 3 months. So these are the benefits which I can say we have experienced when we have moved to the cloud, and we are actually using it. So it's no longer a theory that cloud is existing, but it's something that is actually in use in Homa Bay, and the Minister of Health Homa Bay County is quite happy because now it can easily monitor the patients that they are taking care of, and we are really seeing that you're going to now control the HIV pandemic in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's some very insightful and encouraging stuff when you see, especially in light of the HIV/AIDS situation. But just briefly before I move to our next panelist, what was your feeling as an organization in regards to just feeling that your data is safe and that it is worth the what risk?
Yeah, there was the feeling that data was security was an issue. And before we got to Konza, of course, there was the other options of public clouds, Microsoft Azure, AWS. They don't have data centers within the country. Yeah, so we had to explore all the things concerning security. And within the country, the Data Protection Act was just coming in, but there were other mechanisms, in other countries, especially US. You have that, the Health Insurance and Portability Act, and the DDR for EU. So when you reviewed that, then you saw that the cloud is actually able to handle all the security concerns that are required within the health sector. And now Konza added us now the advantage that now the data which belongs to the patient can't move can't move out of the country. So with that kind of background, now we were comfortable now just to start utilizing the cloud platform so that we can give effective services to our patients. So we did quite a review, and we were comfortable with the security that's actually there. And we did actually visit at Konza, and the security measures there, I can assure you, they're quite robust. You don't visit Konza because you just don't go to Konza and knock the door and say you want to visit. You have to plan a visit. It has to be approved before you're able to actually get there. So those were quite good for us, and we were comfortable to move that way.
All right, thank you very much for that. And I now want to come to the gentleman from MTN, that's John Muraya. He's the head of ICT Solutions, MTN Business Kenya. John, maybe you could tell us what kind of trends have you noticed in regards to people adopting and accepting the cloud dynamic of things? Are we seeing people still being very, antsy about it, they're not too sure about it, or are we seeing people becoming more engaged in the same?
Thank you, Dan, for that question, and thank you for having me. The trend that I see, having been in the industry for quite some time, is, we've had cloud service for many years, and a lot of customers, especially the large enterprises, which ideally one would think would be the first ones to move to cloud, I think they've taken quite a lot of time to make the decision. And you'll find that those that make the decision to move, it's really out of necessity, either because they need to launch a product very fast and they do not have the time to wait until the hardware comes, which is one of the advantages of moving to cloud services, or because the budget or the business case that they are presenting into the business doesn't work. But on the medium and the small enterprise, I think it's very impressive. Businesses are running on the cloud now. I know quite a lot that have the full production site and the DR moving to cloud. And one thing I would want to highlight for those that still fear that decision of migrating is, I have not interacted with a customer that migrated one application to cloud services and they had to make a decision to switch back to on-prem. I have not interacted with that. What we see is, because that one application you made a decision to move has brought so much difference, a lot of impact to the business, you gradually start to bring in more applications. And that tells you that it's ideally the right thing to do, that you do not need to invest or tie your budget into on-prem infrastructure to run your business, when you could actually get that as a service and you only pay when you need it. And I want just to pull one example, which is a real case study for a customer, without mentioning names. And the reason that made them to cloud services is really because of a business case. You know, they went to the business, they did their budgeting. This is what we think we need for the next 3 to 5 years, which is what you have to do for on-prem. And the budget was not available. So they had to go speak to a cloud and then come back and say, this is what we need to make available on the go basis. And the experience was that first, the money they would have spent to invest on-prem infrastructure, starting from the data center to servers, to switches, to firewalls, which is quite expensive, that money can be allocated to something else. So for our esteemed guest, whether you are in retail, that money could go to improving your stocks. If you're in manufacturing, that money could go improving your raw materials. So you're freeing up that money. And now what we are saying is, we can make, and this is what we did for this customer, we can make infrastructure available within a matter of weeks. And the reason migration took time was nothing to do with whether the servers or the virtual environment is available or not, but it's actually because of the planning requirements from the customer. So you're seeing a lot of savings from money, but also another saving that is coming from the time to go to market. And most importantly, when you tie elements within, what happens is you need people to manage that, that environment. So you need to have an IT team that is not focusing on which I call the core of IT, which is the business or the business logic application layer, but really focusing on managing a data center, managing servers, managing hardware, the mechanical part of IT. And I think that needs to be outsourced to service providers. So you find that the IT team that would otherwise be focusing on that is now paying more attention to support the business, to innovate, to become more efficient, to automate the process. They involved more on the application layer as opposed to managing hardware. So, but what has happened, done is with COVID, the acceleration and the move to cloud has now become very fast. And is a lot of customers that kept these items on-prem, this thing of, you know, the servers are closer to me, I have control, my users are working from the local area network, so it's high speed, it's always available. But then COVID came and this thing, and the same users that were working from the office left the office, and the only tenant left in the office were the servers. So again, the users now started working from remote, which means you are kind of being forced to work in a cloud environment as much as it's seated on your premises. And what I'm seeing in the last 1 year or so, there's accelerated migration to cloud services, and a lot of enterprises, a lot of governmental institutions are now moving to use cloud services. I think one more thing that has accelerated that is some specific applications like email. A lot of people are now using emails that are sitting on the cloud as opposed to on-prem, and other services like, if you have a sales and distribution network and you want to have an application that works for you, a lot of these are available and more agile when you move them to the cloud services. But my ask to the esteemed guest that we have today, if you haven't made this move because of whichever fear you have, there is no customer that moved a single application and they had to switch back because the of cloud that was not delivered. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you very much for that. That's quite some good insight. And I see we have Bwana Hezbon Malwei, who's the Director of ICT at the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. Thank you for joining us. The question, yes, the question I wanted to just, I was putting your way earlier on, which I just like you to address as well, is there are a number of security concerns in terms of questions, in terms of online security. When talking about cloud, how safe am I? Because we're coming from a generation where people had all their documents in a box file, and I had them wherever I went with me if I needed to, But now you're telling me to put it in a place called a cloud. From the government standpoint, what is being done? It's like a vote of confidence in regards to what is done to ensure that the safety element is adhered to and is available and is implemented.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry, I joined a bit late, but let me just start by saying that it is great to have such a meeting. And from where I sit, we've really been trying to have some sessions with Konza so that we can have at least the government people understand on the issue of the cloud services. And I think the CEO, Konza, and his team have been doing quite some great work just to ensure that we understand some of this perspective. From where I sit, we are charged actually in the looking at the government infrastructure, at the same time the aspect of security of it, and just ensure that the service delivery to the citizen is done in a timely way, in a secure way. And this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. And Konza coming up as it were, and coming up with a data center, most of our problems we believe will be solved. And anyone who has been listening to this, because this is a classroom environment, I think a lot has been said on what services are available and what we need to do. Some of the questions that have been there is the issue of migration, the issue of integration and consolidation. And that's what we've been doing, because we are coming from an era where we had the server rooms and everyone was doing something locally. And now we are moving into an era of where we have the cloud services. And I think Evans has actually alluded to the issue of security, that there are various aspects of security that needs to come into play from the beginning, from end to end, so that even as we migrate, we are assured that indeed there is the security aspect is taken into account. We really need not lose focus from the fact that Huduma number is coming into operation to replace the way we work, because that will be an authentic way to identify people, and definitely will require more of these cloud services. We are going also towards the UHC, and I think it has also been alluded to, universal health coverage. And we'll see a lot of data moving up and down. And this is, in a way, the government trying to ensure that the services to the people are available. And in so doing, Konza it's very timely. Having Konza as the primary and having a DR at the same time, because we need security. You don't need to have your data all in one place, and when everything collapses, then you are done. And I think this is happening, making the infrastructure even better and improving in terms of speeds and bandwidth. I think this is what everyone is looking up to. The issue, of course, of security, we are looking at it not from, we are looking at it from the perspective of not everyone, has to come in and we are looking at it from a higher point. And Konza as a data center, they of course they've assured of the security, and on the network as well. As a ministry, we have to ensure that the security is there, and this is the only way people can have confidence with the services within the government, and someone knows that his data will not be interfered with, or people will have issues. So as Konza being a data center, all the government infrastructure, we want to shift so that people can now migrate their data into Konza. And this, we've been having a discussion on how to do it seamlessly and in timely manner, so that everyone actually gets the cloud services. We are looking at cutting down on the issue of cost, which has also been alluded to. We don't want everyone, instead of doing the IT services, you are also having people doing the auxiliary equipment maintenance. So definitely, much as it were, is going to cut down on costs, and this is what we are looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, for just your opening remark on the same, Bwana Malwei. And I want to bring in and sort of back Jackson Kimeu, who is a cloud specialist at the Kenya Medical Training College. He's a cloud specialist. And Jackson, maybe you could tell us, there's a lot of things that we mentioned. Aside from security, there's the cost element, because like we said, the underlying thing is that this is a business kind of setting. We're dealing with businesses. Now, given the fast changing nature of technology, where after every so often, people who are in the technology field have to go and get some sort of upgrade, of their skills and of their know-how, just to be in step with the same. How can businesses ensure that the spending in their IT space realizes good returns on investment? Because I will choose to invest in this cloud space or otherwise, but then there might be the fear that eventually things will turn around so fast that this investment becomes null and void. And I can see Gilbert had his hand up. Sorry, I had not noted that. Maybe Jackson can just speak, then Gilbert, you can come to you.
Right. Thank you very much, Dan. When you try to move your workloads from on-premise to the cloud, you are trying to lower costs. What do I mean by that? You move into OPEX, right? And then you're trying to overgrow the costs by ensuring you're achieving investment back. For example, when you move to the cloud, the normal incurring OPEX expenses, they don't incur anymore. Maintenance costs of servers, purchase of licenses, those ones are going to be completely off. And then, as you have mentioned, issue to do with the obsolete items, and in terms of you have infrastructure, you have moved to the cloud, and still you have some infrastructure on board. Yeah, you see, when the infrastructure already becomes obsolete, and already you have moved to the cloud, yeah, then definitely you have to maybe do an investment on it. Either you sell or something, because already you have moved to the cloud. The major benefit that we are trying to tell the audience is that this is the moment that we're supposed to migrate from on-premise to the cloud. And in terms of cost cutting, yeah, we're talking of issues to do with, we are giving clients a lot of availability of resources, scalability, right? And I'm sorry if I'm trying to repeat myself, and the issues to do with the agility. So a client will be promised that, yeah, he will never be able to buy any more servers because already he has a cloud, and there is a methodology that we call pay on move. Pay on move is like, for example, let me use an example of Netflix. In Netflix, you only buy a service. You only buy what you require, and that is it. You are not incurring any kind of expense. There are some few questions that have been asked that kindly let me take this opportunity also maybe to try to answer them. One of the questions, there is someone who asked about something to do with the co-location. When it comes to data centers, we normally have what we call enterprise and co-location. For instance, in Kenya, we have like several tier 3 data centers. One is already now Konza City that is on operation. We have also ADC, we have Safaricom, yeah. But again, they are leveraged in terms of what kind of data centers are these. For Safaricom, it is an enterprise data center, yeah, purely because they host their own products. But when it comes to data centers like ADC, Konza City, iColo, and the rest, these are co-location data centers because the clients, they normally buy space. They normally migrate from CAPEX to OPEX. And that is the reason we are calling them co-location data centers. There is someone who asked about issues to do with international cloud providers who are not even in Kenya, like Amazon, latency issue. There is something that we call regional zones. For instance, the whole Africa, I will say Amazon has a regional zone in South Africa, and probably again in Microsoft. It is a very good move for our nation that now we are building more data centers, and this time tier 3 data centers. We are going to bring in international cloud providers. We're talking of now Amazon coming to Kenya as a regional zone, Microsoft coming to Kenya as a regional zone. So we are going to reduce the latency. We are going to have people being able to access content in the cloud belonging to Amazon very fast because already they have brought their infrastructure in our country. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks a lot for that. Again, some great insight there from you, Jackson. We appreciate it. And Gilbert had something to say. Gilbert,
yeah, sure.
The stream is yours.
Thank you, Dan. I think just a few points to emphasize from Mr. Maloe's point and also now Mr. Kimeu's points there. One thing I think I just wanted to highlight, especially and hear from Mr. Maloe, was you know, we are clearly seeing that this is the time really to push the move to cloud. And I think especially in government, you know, services, if you like, government offered services, government, you know, IT functions, if you like. I'm seeing that this is the time really that we need to actually make this move. And I guess my question was simply to Mr. Maloe on whether especially the Ministry of ICT is making a calculated move where, you know, pushing a policy that, you know, for example, all government institutions are, you know, to start promoting the national data center that is a 3-tier level, if you like. Are we deliberately pushing government institutions to actually move their data into the national data center? A few other points, as I think before Maloe probably get back on that, is I have had experience really, and I think by the time we decided to move to Konza City, it was out of a lot of frustrations. We offer a system, risk management software, and mostly our clients were actually government institutions, but at the same time, we were doing it in-house. Now, I would have questions like from one of the larger government institutions that was concerned of sovereignty of data. You know, we were initially thinking of even using a Microsoft cloud. And so the question comes, you want to take our risk information, very sensitive, classified, I would say, information, put it out there in the cloud. What's the sovereignty? No, more than security. Of course, security is kind of there, but is our data now accessible or controllable by another sovereign, government out there, the Europe or wherever it is, wherever these data centers are, do we have control of that data? I think those are things that we also need to be thinking about. Right now, we are really looking at even the issue with the new Data Protection Act. One of our systems that we are rolling out is a digital learning platform. And by no question, we knew clearly there is no other place to host it. We have to go to Konza National Data Center. That security and that comfort of data being local here, being protected, no sovereignty questions, I suppose, and really just promoting the need of, especially government institutions going cloud. I mean, how many times do you go to eCitizen or, some of these are, government public services, if you like, that you want to make an application for something, or you want to make a payment for some land rates and something like that, and the system tells you it's not available, not accessible now, try later. I mean, of course, these kind of things should not be the case in a cloud kind of service. So I think that's my contribution, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. And maybe I'll let Bona Director respond to some of the matters that you've raised there so that we can strike while the iron is hot.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, as a government, it is important that we've invested a lot in Konza, and it is important that we also need to get returns on that investment. And in so doing, of course, it takes time before people are aligned. And we've had various meetings as ICT officers within the MDAs, just to ensure that people, the people whose responsibility is to advise on the issues of ICT are able to be aligned and know that these facilities are there and what they can provide, which services can be provided. And most of them, I think, they are also here. And the issue of migration as to when people then need to migrate, and which sort of application softwares, what can happen there. I think all this has been alluded to. And we are coming up, actually, we've had various meetings. We are looking at the issue of policy. And I think this is key, that everyone has to be aligned, but we have to do that. You can't just, it's not like you can switch off just at once. And as we move forward, that is the way we are going. And everyone who wants to come up with any other new system, the servers and so on, we've always directed them to go back to Konza first. They get the story of the cloud services and how they can actually plug into it. And I think that is what is happening. And we are happy to note that Konza have been moving steadfast to ensure that indeed they have all the information that is required to do this. And I think at the moment we have a number of MDAs who are there. I think the last time we checked, we are at 9 or 10 going forward. And I think by the turn of the year, we should be having even more and more as we move forward. And also, as I've alluded to the fact that there are a number of systems within the government which will need to be integrated so that they can talk together for delivery services as we move forward. And this can happen best when we go to the cloud services. And definitely we are moving in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Before I can see Evans has raised his hand, just before I let him come in, just for some sense of clarity, Bona Director, do we have what percentage of government institutions are already on cloud? Just in case I might have missed that, but just for sake of clarity.
Yeah, thank you. What I said the last time I checked, I think we had about 9 or 10. I think if Lucas is here, he can confirm if the number has gone up. Yeah, I don't have the exact data now, but the last time we checked, it was about 9. The MDAs were there.
Okay, because I think the feeling would be, as the government encourages, everyone else to move in that direction, it would be good to see whether they're leading the way. And I can see John Murray has a response to that before I come to Evans. John?
No, mine is different. It has nothing to do with that. Should I go? Should I let Evans go
first?
Okay,
let Evans go first, then we can come to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Evans, you could raise your point.
Looks like he wants me to go first. We know each other.
Yeah. Okay. Sawa.
So I wanted to compliment the point on Mel raised on the CAPEX to which is better, OPEX or CAPEX. One very common mistake that a lot of enterprises trying to move to make is to compare the CAPEX of a server against the monthly rental that they get from the cloud provider. So you go with those two costs to finance or procurement team and you fail. And what happens is if you just compare those two costs, you realize that within 20 months, you probably have paid for the server. But what you forget to bring out to the buying entity, the procurement, is that there are other overhead costs that go with that server. If you have a server, then you need space for it. So you need to quantify what is the rental cost of that space for the server, because you need to keep it on your premises. It consumes power. You have to get a maintenance contract with the OEM to maintain the server. You need people to manage that server. So you need to look at all those overhead costs on top of the CAPEX, and then you compare that with the monthly rental you get from the cloud provider. Then just to address one more question that I saw from one of the guests, I think Jumbe, is colocation OPEX or CAPEX? So colocation is OPEX, but only with respect to the data center. So you have, instead of building a data center, you're getting a rental space. From the center point of view, it's OPEX. However, for the servers and the system, it is still CAPEX. And you need to leverage and think beyond colocation. You can start off by saying, I'll go OPEX first for data center and collocate. But then the future is you need to also get rid of servers and also systems and buy that as a service. So it's like a journey. Thank you. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks for that. I don't know whether Evans is back now.
Yes, Dan, I'm here.
Okay, carry on.
Sorry.
Then we've got Curtin.
Yeah, I needed to demystify something. I've heard people say that they're moving to the cloud because it's secure, which is true to some extent. But if I refer back to my last slide, we said security is a shared responsibility. So just to clarify, when Gilbert is asking Malwei about government services being offline, we need to understand that everything exists in layers. And what we are saying is, if, for instance, the implementation was not done by security by design, it means that from the hardware, there's a problem, the network, there's a problem. What I'm seeing more repeatedly in Kenya has nothing to do with even the infrastructure. It has to do with the application development side. We're having a lot of people who don't follow secure system development life cycle. and they come and push the infrastructure in your cloud. That infrastructure or that application might be unavailable, but has nothing to do with the cloud or where it's seated. So what we need to do is, as we address the issues of security, we must insist that everything must be secure by design. And that's where we go wrong. If you want to implement anything and follow the security standards, you don't spend more time or more effort than when you do it in the wrong way. If anything, doing it without security is more expensive because retrofitting for security has proven not to work. It is the equivalent of structural integrity of a house. If you're going to build 5 stories, you better involve a structural engineer to tell you the metal bars you need. This is not the time to include your cousin because your cousin has built houses. You must understand that there are some things which have to be designed before they're implemented. And that is what we are seeing going wrong with a lot of applications in Kenya. And that's why even like Moriah, if he's going to quote for you anything, he'll have to understand what is your objective. Then from your objective, you are able to build towards that objective. So at CODA, you're looking at the infrastructure. It is safe, but when you come and put an insecure application, even if it's a government application, you'll end up blaming Malwei, but it's not him. It is the person who developed the application who did not actually adhere to the zero trust framework that we were discussing about making sure that the application is secure. That's what I needed to clarify.
Thanks a lot for that. And I can see Calvin has a point to also raise. Calvin?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dan. I just wanted to emphasize that the solution which you have given for Homa Bay County actually belongs to the Department of Health, County Government of Homa Bay. All the health facilities belong to them. So that should be counted as part of government, having gone to CONSA. Thank you.
We hear you loud and clear. It has added to our data for the government, how many governments are taking up the same. You wanted to add something again, Calvin? Okay. I think I saw your hand up again. And I want to bring back Mr. Bunei. I don't know if he's still with us. If David Bunei is still with us. Is he? Let me just counter check first of all. It seems he's not there, but okay. If he's not there, we'll still pick up and get something else, and rather speak to something else. Now, I wanted to. I'm going to just come to Evans once again because there's something that we had spoken about earlier on. Which I think is quite a tangible thing when it comes to these conversations about cloud. And like has been mentioned, COVID happened, and it made us have to re-engineer our way of working. So we're having more people working from home, and so ideally we are probably seeing more organizations, be it governments or private sector, relying a bit more on cloud services because. Like I'll say, like in the Nation Center, some of our servers are here. We can't move with them everywhere we are, for instance. So are we saying that as we get more into cloud, that it means that we are slowly making office spaces obsolete? Because some of them, that means that we shall cause, because that's one of the take home sample may have here. Now you take the link of this discussion or this webinar and send to their HR to justify consider permanently working from home. Maybe just give us the connection of the two.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And also to borrow from Moriah's words, now we are renting the space for the servers, not for the people. So what the cloud has done is, and of course COVID, is that the traditional perimeter for Nation Center used to be that once you put a firewall, everything within Nation Center now is secure. But now, here is Dan, who needs to work from home. The perimeter now shifts from Nation Center building to your house. Your house, your service provider is not the same for your office. What that means is that now the risk matrix changes because now the company has to worry about the risk of Dan's home network. How many of you work for Nation who are working from home? That becomes a challenge. And again, this is now the opportunity we are now trying to grab from the cloud. Because in the cloud now, there is now consideration for even remote working. And like I had mentioned earlier in one of my slides, Dan can still work and access NTV work. But CODA is telling you, don't allow Dan to use his gadgets as he pleases. Here we have virtual desktop infrastructure. This gadget will have full access to everything that Dan needs to, but Dan will never be able to copy any data out. Because again, remember that as long as you're employed by Nation, even if you invent something today, the thing is that intellectual property belongs to the employer. So question is, how does the employer ensure security of their data and make you work at the same time? So now the cloud provides us to have an elastic perimeter which moves with the employer, with employee. And that is one of the advantages that we're having. If you look at some of the best VDI offering, you install even in your computer, let's say software-based, nothing stops you from now moving to Kilifi. You'll be working from Kilifi. Of course, now the sunset will be better than Nation Center, but the thing is, your productivity and the security of the work of Nation is still protected. So again, for me, I would say we need to leverage on cloud in the sense that now it brings that flexibility for the worker and it brings the security that is needed.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. It's some good clarity that you've offered there. And I mean, time is you know, not so much on our side. And so as we come to a close, I'd just like to ask Jackson, because you know you handle a lot of this, and maybe we could also have the same being addressed by Malwei. This brings a concern about jobs. You know, we are trying to create jobs, etc. But what happens is that the deeper you get into technology, the deeper you get into what people perceive as a risk of job loss. So, for example, when we were beginning to get more machinery being IT operated, IT driven, IT based, you find that I had a factory, I was hiring 1,000 people, but now because of my machinery, I only need to hire 600 people. So there are 400 people are left hanging. So there comes the concern that are we also likely to see people in the IT field losing out on jobs because they're becoming obsolete by virtue of us relying more on cloud, and what is being done to kind of counter that situation. So I see Gilbert also respond the same. So I'll ask Jackson to mention something, then Gilbert, then you can come to the director as I now throw off my last questions to the CEO of Konza.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. I think one thing that we need to understand is that the moment we move our workloads from on-premise to data center, I mean to the cloud, we're not touching the human resource factor, right? We're going to be left with the operational side of you. So we are only taking the workloads and issue to do with infrastructure, as we say, because the ICT guys there, they normally, for instance, manage it. Yeah, there is not going to be any difference whatsoever. The information that is seated in the data center, the way they have been accessing it on premise, the same thing. They'll be logging to their servers in data center and managing on their daily routines. The only things that we are trying to cut costs here, and that's why we are talking about CAPEX, OPEX. We are migrating the data to the cloud, right? And then we avoid the normal daily to daily, or rather maybe monthly operational cost in terms of probably maintenance. Things like maintenance of you are outsourcing someone to come and check your CCTV, to check the resource power in the server room, things to do with those kind of examples. That is what we are trying to eliminate from on-premise. But the ICT team still will be managing the systems, accessing them direct from the data center.
Yeah, thanks, Dada. Look, that's very interesting, and I think I just want to share my actual real experience with these challenges of moving to ICT and loss of jobs and that kind of thing. I've seen Or rather, I actually believe ICT is just an enabler. It's not supposed to replace some of these things that we do. With the COVID pandemic last year and the talk of digital learning coming up, teachers were resisting the idea and thinking, if we start having learning management systems, where will our jobs be? Are kids going to be learning online and they don't need us anymore? Actually, in one of my schools where my kid goes, that was very real, if you like. Probably even some teachers lost some work for some time. I think they are now coming back because only during that COVID time and the digital or online stuff they were doing, they didn't need as many teachers. Interesting. With my clients as well, trying to convince them to go to cloud, I'm actually seeing bigger resistance within the ICT department. Probably they're worrying if we move all our systems and all that to cloud, what will we be doing? Are we then now next going to be told to go home? You know, it's real, really. But I think I just want to share that I've actually seen through one organization dealing in logistics in Kenya here, that have slowly migrated all their systems actually to cloud. And I've known the ICT team, about 7 of them, pre and post. Actually, there has been addition of 2 more. So there's been an addition, not a reduction. So I think I just want to be clear. I think the fear of, IT taking our jobs and that kind of thing is really neither here nor there. Teachers are still getting work. With our digital learning management system, we also had publishers who are wondering, how will we sell our books if everything is digitized in your OPEX platform? And you know, with time, they are starting to see actually this is increasing our sales, this is increasing our reach. There's opportunity in ICT. It's not supposed to be, you know, something we fear or something that we think is just going to take jobs from us and move on. I just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. If I could just come in. Fear sometimes is real because if you don't know what's going to come next, you are bound to have fear. However, ICT being dynamic the way it is and many things coming into play and more people using it, I think the issue of loss of job is not, it is a fear that is not real. If I look from the government, from where I sit, in fact, we are looking for more people, much as we are going on cloud. And this explains that more and more people now are using, they are now using their online meetings like the way we are on now. I mean, 2 years ago, this was unheard of. And now, so you need people who can actually go along to show people how to use this, and the issue of security, which is also being alluded. And I think when we went online, meetings online, we've had quite some sporadic issues in the area of security. So you still need the security people there and all that. So we are only changing from one form to another, and people in ICT are very dynamic, so that you are moving from one area to the other area. And what we are simply saying, as we move from CAPEX to OPEX, we are asking ourselves, are there returns on investments? All we are saying is that we are looking at it that people are not really losing employment, but we are cutting down on the issue of costs overall. This is what we are looking at, because the issue of power, the issue of maintenance of generators, the issue of so many other costs that come along with the having server rooms and having data centers on premise. That is what we are saying. That one is surely should not really happen now, and we look at better ways of doing the job and more people thinking out of the box so that we can have ICT, which is an enabler, alongside people using it in a better and in a better way. So we should not have that fear that jobs are getting lost. And as it's been alluded, I'm yet to hear of any organization where they are saying they are cutting down on ICT people because they've gone on cloud services. I'm yet to hear that. Thank you.
All right, Dan Mwangi has requested to be given a minute to grab a glass of water. This conversation has gone beyond our scheduled time. I didn't know that ICT people can really have a lot to discuss. We thought it's only marketers. I can see Calvin and Mariah, you have comments, but before that, there are questions from our participants that I would like to call upon Mr. Lucas Omolo, who is our ICT and Smart City Manager, to just respond to them. Ruben Wanjala, you are grateful. You're saying it's a beautiful forum. Derek, what happened when there is a change of political governance whose leadership focus is not on strengthening the infrastructure at Konza? What are the sustenance modalities in place? So Lucas will respond to our sustainability plan. We also have questions that Derek, what identity management, authentication, authorization, and access controls are in place at Konza? And then is the Conda data center linked to the CDC? Are they in sync? We hope that, Lucas, you can take 2 minutes to respond to that, even as we get the comments from Calvin and John, who will then comment as they give their closing remarks.
Okay. Thank you so much, June, and our panelists for that insightful session. Just before I do something on the questions, the one on people is very interesting, and maybe just to share with the audience that what I'm looking at is a situation where going to cloud translates to the institution focusing on the service as opposed to managing the ICT infrastructure. So that translates to better service delivery, which translates to better customer satisfaction, translate to more revenue. And therefore, you may end up even now recruiting more ICT people because the focus now of the organization will be the service. There's a question, June, on the process of onboarding. We have a seamless process of bringing a client on our cloud. Within a week, once we've understood your requirements and our paperwork is ready, we should be able to successfully onboard you to our cloud. The account, the email account that we're using is cloud@konza.go.ke. So we have a very dynamic team. We'll be able to have meetings so that you are able to understand the product that we have. Then the identity management tool that we have for authentication and authorization. Most of our operations in the data center are automated. So we are using Netico platform for access control that has biometric and card for identifying our staff. There's also a focus other than the system itself. So technology needs to be supported by procedures and processes. So we have processes and policies that guide who accesses what at what time and so forth. So those tools and processes, policies guide us in terms of access and the rest. Then, of course, there was a question on how Konza is reaching out to prospective clients, government and private institutions. So we reach out to institutions through such forums like the one we are having. We do quarterly of these webinars, but we've also attended quite a number of other seminars organized by other organizations where we share what is happening at Konza. The other program that we do is through our innovation ecosystem, where we engage various stakeholders within the innovation space. With that, we've been able to share the benefits of what we are doing here at the Technopolis. Then there was a question on which guarantees ICT giving to consumers for them to migrate to Konza. I think a lot has been said, but one of the key things that we can guarantee customers in the DC is compliance to both data protection regulations that were recently enacted. We are soon completing ISO 27001 that Evans alluded to for information security management. So the assurance on information security is key. We've also managed, I think the CEO mentioned earlier on, having attained international standards and certification. So this gives the comfort globally that Konza National Data Center is at that top level when it comes to meeting the global requirements. So June, I believe I've addressed most of those questions.
Yes, Lucas. In the interest of time, Calvin, kindly take 1 minute as you give your closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, June. So I just wanted to comment on the issue of fear for loss for jobs. Actually, in the project we implemented, we added IT staff just to ensure that all the facilities are supported. And we actually used the savings that we'll have used for capital expenditures to just sustain those staff. And there are enough jobs in the health sector. The health does not have IT staff to support health facilities. So IT staff can actually easily move that way. And they will start thinking again to just stop thinking about wires and servers. So they can start doing an application and how just to ensure everything is running well. Thank you.
Your parting shot, Calvin?
Cloud is the way to go, and Konza is quite robust. So I will challenge anyone that has participated today to go pay a visit to Konza and move there. For the months you have worked with them, I can say our services have been very smooth and very good, and everything is quite good. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so very much. John Moriah, you have a comment. Do also give us your closing remarks.
Thank you, June. My comment was also regarding on whether cloud will mean that some IT people will lose their job. And the honest answer to that is no. In fact, it will free them up from the mundane core support services they have to do and move them close to what IT is really about, which is an enabler of business, and makes them even more relevant to their business. And my experience for a number of customers that we've supported to migrate to cloud services, as Gilbert said, is they've ended up growing their IT team because there was more value to draw from the IT team after that migration. And my parting shot is first, congratulations to Engineer and Konza team for this great milestone. And my ask to the guests who are connected is let's put our data there. It is a good thing for this country, it's a good thing for this region, and it's a good thing for your businesses and your institutions. Thank you very much.
All right, I can see Dan Mwangi is back. Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear and see you.
Oh, all right, Dan, we've had comments and closing remarks from Calvin and John Moriah. As I hand it over to you, I would like to have our director from MYCT to also give us his closing remarks and the rest of the panelists as we draw closer to this session.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I must say thank you to the CEO and to his team for having us, and this should be done more often so that more and more people are enlightened and they know where you are in terms of this data center and what can be the services you are providing. From the government perspective, ours is service delivery. And when we don't have services, when the system is down, really there's quite a big problem. And moving forward, actually, the cloud service is the way to go. And we will ensure that from where we sit, that more and more of the MDAs go on the cloud services. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Bono Director. Then, Juno, to the guidance, which of the panelists had not yet closed?
We had Mr. Evans Kahutu.
Yes.
All right, Dan, I would say that when WHO says sanitize and wear masks, I think it's based on data, scientific. The same way when it comes to security, we always tell people it's not an option. You just need to do it the right way. So what I'm saying is integrate security even in your personal life. Because what happens is letting down the guard, that 1 minute is where the vulnerability comes in. And that's what we are trying to ensure at CODA, that the infrastructure has security integrated in every step of the data center, from physical to logical and all those things, so that we can be able to create the necessary trust, so that, again, we can be able to host our data local. You have to agree with me, data is the new oil. So the more data you give to any data center out there, they commercialize it, they make money out of it, they're able to make a lot of analysis on us. We need to be able to have that control of our data for the sake of our privacy. I don't want to know about your life because I have your data and I'm able to analyze it. I'll need to have that privacy, which is also guaranteed under the Data Protection Act, which is what we must conform to. That is my parting shot.
Thanks a lot for that, Evans. Quite something, quite enlightening, as has been the rest of the discussion. June, have I left anyone else out?
Dan, I think we've covered the team. Maybe we could now invite the CEO to give the closing remarks and probably thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Buona CEO, you're welcome now.
Thank you, Dan, and the panelists who have really done a wonderful job on this important topic. And I believe with this now we can make that important big switch to cloud. I want to thank also our peers who has joined us in this very important conversation. It's been very educative, listening on aspect of security, infrastructure, and all that. It's quite educative, and I agree with Espon that we need to make it more regular. And we commit as Consa Technopolis to continue to do this. And we are looking at ICT as one of the components in the bigger picture of delivering value to Kenya through the Consa Technopolis project. And other discussions will be coming to link, especially the human resource, the training part, the new requirement for human resource. There were concerns that could this be going to cause loss of jobs, but it's the opposite. And we've had testimonies here that it will actually open more opportunities in the ICT sector, and the resources in the ICT department can be utilized to create more value to those organizations, to expand and focus on core businesses of that organization. So it's quite an exciting day. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, June, and the whole participants who are here. If you need any information, the link and the emails has been shared on the chat, and you are also welcome to reach out to us. Thank you, and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much for that. Definitely, we are grateful that you've reminded us, of the email that you should reach out to in case you have any queries or otherwise. We thank everybody. Our panelists have been great. Like we've been saying, it feels like we've been in a class. I feel like I've left this webinar with a diploma or something like that. So
yes,
we should all become champions for the cloud direction and just seeing what CODA is doing and the rest of the industry at large. So thank you very much to all. June, at this point, I believe I should turn it back to you for the vote of thanks and the final closure. Thank you very much. For the avoidance of doubt and assumption, my name is Dan Mwangi. I am the Digital and Innovation Editor at NTV Kenya, as well as a news anchor. Asanteni sana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so very much. I'd love to request our ICT team, including the team at BDNI, to come on camera. Would like to see you, the team that has enabled us to have a successful webinar, and those who have adopted the SLAs to ensure that you get 99.9.8 support. Kindly come on stage, of course, led by Lucas Omolo, the manager, Jackson. Jackson is a senior officer there. Let's have the rest of the team come on stage, please. You know, ICT tend to be camera shy, but today they've spoken. We are surprised. You people can talk. Okay, let's have the ICT team. Our chief manager, Stella Muhuro, if you're around. Anna, our sales manager. All right. All right. That's the team. They are more than that, and they're able to give you the support, of course, with the leadership of our able CEO, Engineer Dr. Nui. We are committed to ensuring that our services, our cloud services in the country are optimum. I'm told you say optimum, and you're able to enjoy the services. Thank you so very much. I would request to have one of us to close with a word of prayer. Immaculate, kindly say the closing prayer. All right. Right. Thank you so very much, everyone. We have your contacts. You have our contacts. Continue engaging with us. We want to wish you a very good evening, and we pray that we may continue to have this conversation. And until next time, we want to wish you nothing but the best. Asanteni sana, muwe na jioni njema. My name is June Chepkemei. I was the co-moderator.